I found out that my girlfriend was cheating on me with the new cool kid in school while I was literally hiding in the back of his car, holding a birthday gift I was planning to surprise her with. Can you even imagine the level of betrayal you'd feel watching the person you love laugh at your expense with someone who's been in town for less than a month? I'm still shaking as I type this out, and I honestly need to know from all of you. Was my revenge too much, or did they get exactly what they deserved? I've always been that guy, the shy one who blends into the lockers, the kid who never raised his hand unless he absolutely had to. My name is Leo, and for the longest time, my only real light in that suffocating high school atmosphere was Maya. We had been together for 2 years, starting back when we were just awkward sophomores. Maya was different. She was vibrant, popular in a quiet way, and somehow, she saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. I treated her like a queen because in my eyes she was the only person who truly understood me. But then everything changed when Julian moved to town. Julian was the definition of cool, without even trying. He had that messy hair, the leather jacket, and a customized car that sounded like a growling beast every time he pulled into the student parking lot. Within a week, he was the center of the universe. I didn't think much of it at first because I trusted Maya completely. We had plans, dreams of going to the same college, a future mapped out in whispered conversations late at night. But I started noticing the shifts, small ones at first. She'd mention something funny Julian said in history class, or she'd be late meeting me at my locker because she was helping him with a project. My gut was screaming, but I pushed it down, telling myself I was just being an insecure, shy kid. The turning point was my 18th birthday. I had saved up for months to buy her this vintage locket she'd seen in an antique shop, thinking I'd surprise her after her volleyball practice. I went to the gym, but she wasn't there. One of her teammates told me she'd left early with Julian to study. I felt a cold pit form in my stomach. I walked out to the parking lot and saw Julian's car. For some reason, call it intuition or desperation, I saw the trunk was slightly popped open. I don't know what possessed me, but I climbed in, thinking I'd wait and jump out as a joke if it was just them hanging out. Or maybe I just needed to know the truth. What I heard broke me. They got in the car, and within minutes, they weren't talking about history. Julian was mocking my stutter, calling me a placeholder, until someone better came along. And Maya was giggling. She said I was sweet but boring, and that she didn't know how to break up with me without making me cry. I sat there in the dark, surrounded by the smell of expensive car freshener, and the sound of my heart shattering into a million pieces. They drove to a lookout point, and the things I heard, the flirting, the planning of how they'd publicly embarrass me at the upcoming bonfire. It was enough to turn my sadness into a cold, hard rage. I realized then that the shy kid they thought they could step on didn't exist anymore. I managed to slip out of the car when they went for a walk to the overlook, but I didn't just walk away. I took Julian's phone, which he'd left in the center console, and I saw everything, the texts, the photos, the proof that this had been going on for weeks. The depth of their betrayal was staggering. And as I sat in my room that night, looking at the locket I never gave her, I realized that a simple breakup wouldn't be enough. They wanted to humiliate me publicly, so I decided I would return the favor, but with 10 times the impact. I spent the next few days in a state of hyperfocus. I attended classes, I sat with Maya at lunch, and I even endured Julian's condescending bro talk, where he'd slap me on the back and ask if I was okay, because I looked a bit pale. It was sickening. Every time Maya leaned in to kiss my cheek, I felt a physical wave of nausea, but I kept the mask on. I needed total access. I used my skills as the school's unofficial tech support guy to ensure I had backups of everything on Julian's cloud. I found folders titled with other girls' names, too. Julian wasn't just cheating with Maya. He was playing a dozen other girls in the district. This guy was a predator, a social vampire who fed on the attention of anyone he could manipulate. My plan wasn't just about my broken heart anymore. It was about exposing a monster who thought he was untouchable. I spent hours editing a video, carefully layering the audio I'd recorded from the car over their own text messages and photos. I wanted the narrative to be undeniable. I wanted everyone to see the faces behind the masks. The night before the bonfire, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times I'd walked Maya home, all the secrets I'd shared with her, and how she'd traded all of that for a guy who couldn't even spell her name right in his contacts. I realized then that my shyness had been a shield, but it had also been a blindfold. I was so used to being the observer that I forgot to observe the person closest to me. I started digging deeper into Julian's past, using some of the login info I'd glimpsed. It turns out he had been kicked out of his previous school for something similar, but his wealthy parents had managed to scrub the official records. He wasn't just a cool kid. He was a serial manipulator who moved from town to town, leaving a trail of broken hearts and ruined reputations. I felt a strange sense of responsibility now. It wasn't just about my pain. It was about stopping him before he did this to someone else who might not be as resilient as I was. I saw Maya at the library the afternoon of the bonfire. She was wearing my favorite hoodie, the one she'd borrowed months ago and never returned. She smiled at me, that same bright smile that used to make my day, and asked if I was coming to the fire. I told her I wouldn't miss it for the world. She had no idea that her world was about to end. I spent the rest of the afternoon triple-checking the AV setup at the school field. I knew the principal liked to give a big speech before the fire was lit, and they always used the massive LED screen for a year-in-review montage. I made sure my special version was hidden behind 3 layers of folders, labeled as Spirit Week Final Edit. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was the pure, cold clarity of someone who had nothing left to lose. I remembered all the times Julian had tripped me in the hall and laughed, all the times he'd called me Little Leo, in front of the whole cafeteria while Maya just stood there, looking at her phone, pretending she didn't hear it. The rage was a quiet flame now, steady and bright. I thought about the locket again. I had taken it back to the store, but the jeweler told me it was a final sale. I kept it in my pocket as a weight, a physical reminder of the love I had wasted on someone who treated me like an option. As the sun began to set, the school field filled up with students, parents, and teachers. The smell of wood smoke was thick in the air. I saw Julian pull up in his car, Maya in the passenger seat, looking like the prom queen she desperately wanted to be. They were holding hands, whispering to each other, likely finalizing their plan to dump me in front of everyone. I just watched from the shadows of the tech booth, a ghost in the machine. I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Sarah from my art class. She asked if I was okay, saying I looked like I was about to go to war. I just smiled and told her to keep her eyes on the screen. She looked confused, but she nodded and walked back to her friends. I felt a brief moment of guilt. Sarah was a good person, and she was about to see something ugly, but I knew I couldn't stop now. The principal took the stage, the crowd cheered, and the lights dimmed. It was time. So that's the situation I was in. I was standing in the dark, betrayed by my girlfriend and bullied by the new guy, holding the evidence of their cruelty in my hands. Before I tell you how I tore their world apart and made sure Julian was run out of town, I want you to pause. Comment below right now. If you were the shy kid everyone looked down on, and you caught your partner laughing at you with your bully, would you walk away quietly, or would you make them regret the day they met you? I chose the latter. I didn't confront them that night. No, I played the long game. For the next 3 days, I acted like nothing was wrong. I kissed Maya. I listened to her lies about where she was, and I even let Julian borrow my homework, all while I was setting the stage. I used Julian's phone, which I'd returned to his car before they got back, to screen record every single disgusting message they'd sent about me and other students. On the night of the big school bonfire, the event where they planned to dump me and humiliate me in front of everyone, I made my move. I had volunteered to handle the tech and AV for the event because, again, I was the reliable shy guy. While everyone was gathered around the massive screen meant for the school spirit slideshow, I swapped the file. Instead of pictures of the football team, I played a loop of their text messages, their voice notes mocking the school staff, and the video I took from the bushes of them laughing at me in the car. The silence that fell over that field was deafening. I stood at the back, watching Maya's face go from smug to ghostly white as she realized her secret life was being broadcasted to 500 people. Julian tried to act tough, but when the football captain saw the text Julian sent calling his mom a drunk, the cool kid suddenly looked very small. I walked up to the microphone, looked Maya dead in the eye, and simply said, "You said I was too shy to stand up for myself. I guess you were wrong." The aftermath was brutal. Maya was social pariah. She lost her friends, her status, and eventually, she had to transfer schools because the guilt and the looks followed her everywhere. Julian? He was expelled after the principal saw the messages he'd sent about the school administration. As for me, I realized that being shy didn't mean being weak. I lost a girlfriend, but I found my spine. But the story didn't end there. In the weeks that followed, the school climate shifted entirely. The cool hierarchy that Julian had built crumbled overnight. People started talking to each other more, sharing their own stories of how they'd been manipulated or bullied by that clique. I became an unlikely confidant for a lot of people. It was strange. Being the guy who was once too scared to speak up was now the guy everyone came to for advice on how to handle their own bullies. I even started a small student advocacy group, focused on digital safety and mental health. I wanted to make sure that no other kid felt as alone as I did in that car trunk. I realized that my revenge, while satisfying, was just the beginning of my growth. I spent a lot of time in therapy, working through the trust issues that Maya had left me with. It wasn't easy. For a long time, every time I saw a girl laughing, I assumed she was laughing at me. But slowly, I started to heal. I met a girl named Sarah in my art class, someone who was genuinely kind and didn't care about social status. We started out as friends, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was being seen for who I actually was, not just as a shy kid or a hero. I remember one afternoon, Sarah and I were sitting on the bleachers, watching the sun go down. She asked me if I ever regretted what I did to Maya and Julian. I thought about it for a long time. I thought about the look on Maya's face as she realized everyone knew the truth. I thought about the way Julian's parents had to come and pack up his locker because he was too ashamed to show his face. I told her that I didn't regret the truth coming out, but I regretted that the truth was so ugly to begin with. I wished I had been enough for her, but I realized that she wasn't enough for herself. She needed the validation of someone cool, because she didn't have any substance of her own. Sarah just nodded and took my hand. It was a simple gesture, but it meant more than any of the grand, fake gestures Maya had ever made. I spent the summer working at a local tech shop, refining the skills that had helped me expose the truth. I realized I had a knack for cybersecurity and digital forensics. What started as a desperate act of revenge turned into a passion for justice. I started helping other people who had been doxxed or bullied online, using my knowledge to track down the people responsible and hold them accountable. My shyness turned into a quiet confidence. I didn't need to be the loudest person in the room to be the most powerful. When graduation finally came, I didn't sit with the popular kids, and I didn't sit with the outcasts. I sat with my friends. Real friends who liked me for my bad jokes and my love for obscure movies. I saw Maya's parents in the crowd looking bitter and tired. I saw the empty space where Julian should have been. I felt a sense of peace. I had reclaimed my life. I had taken the narrative back from the people who tried to make me a side character in my own story. I realized that the best revenge isn't just exposing someone. It's living a life so good that their opinion of you becomes completely irrelevant. I'm heading off to a major university in the fall, and I've already been scouted for a student-led ethical hacking team. I'm not the shy kid anymore. I'm Leo, and I'm the guy who knows how to listen. This whole experience taught me that being shy is often just a label people give you when they don't want to take the time to know you. And being cool is often just a mask for people who are too insecure to be kind. I used to think I needed someone like Maya to make me feel whole, but I found out that I was already whole. She was just a leak in my bucket. Looking back, the bonfire wasn't just the end of my relationship with Maya. It was the birth of a version of me that I actually liked. I learned that you can't control how people treat you, but you can absolutely control how much power you give them over your narrative. Julian and Maya tried to write my ending as a tragic comedy, but I turned it into a victory. To everyone who supported me through this, thank you. To those who think I went too far, I ask you this. If you spent 2 years giving your heart to someone only for them to treat it like a joke, wouldn't you want the world to know the truth too? Like this video if you've ever been underestimated, and definitely subscribe if you want to hear more stories about the underdog finally winning. Your support means everything to me, and it helps ensure that stories like mine get told so others don't feel so alone in their struggle. Leave a comment with your final thoughts, Did I win, or did I lose a part of myself in the process? I'll see you all in the next story.